Welcome to Miss Scarlett, the place to be feminine. Subscribe and enjoy.
Jamie's heart raced as he entered the doors of Bayview High on his first day. Normally, starting at a new school would fill him with dread, but today he felt a nervous excitement. For the first time, he could truly be himself without anyone knowing his past. A chance for a new beginning. He had agonized over his outfit that morning, carefully selecting a lavender blouse, black skater skirt, and white Keds sneakers. Makeup had taken him the longest. Foundation, blush, eyeshadow, mascara. He was still getting the hang of applying it just right. A swipe of bubblegum lip gloss, and he was ready, grabbing his backpack. In the bathroom mirror, a pretty teenage girl stared back at him. Long chestnut hair framed delicate features. He could hardly believe the transformation. For years, he had kept this part of himself hidden, fearful of judgment and ridicule. But no longer. Walking down the unfamiliar hallways, he felt a thrill as other students glanced his way approvingly. The girls smiled at him, while the boys did double takes. For once, he actually enjoyed the attention, a skip in his step. "Love your top!" a curvy blonde complimented as she passed. "Thanks, cute shoes," Jamie replied in a soft voice, cheeks warming. He still wasn't used to speaking in a feminine pitch, but it was becoming more natural. As he continued down the hall, a tall jock suddenly stepped into his path. "Hey, beautiful, you must be new here. I'm Chad." His eyes roved over Jamie in a way that made him want to cover up with a parka. "Hi, I'm Jenny," Jamie stammered, using the name he had picked for his female persona. He tried to maneuver around Chad, but the boy smoothly blocked him. "So, where'd you transfer from? Haven't seen you around before, and trust me, I'd remember a hottie like you." Chad flashed a blinding white smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial. Rosemont High, across town?" Jamie muttered, inventing wildly. His palms felt sweaty, and his face hot. Is this what girls had to deal with all the time? Aggressive flirting from random dudes? Just then, the warning bell rang. "Well, Jenny, I'll be seeing you around." Chad winked before sauntering off as students began to disperse to their classes. Exhaling in relief, Jamie checked his schedule with shaking hands. First period English, room 206. He hoped the rest of the day would involve less heart palpitations. Straightening his shoulders, he stepped into the classroom, taking a seat in the back by the window. "So far, so good," he told himself as the teacher took attendance. He was blending right in, just another nondescript student, not a boy masquerading as a girl. The morning passed uneventfully as he found his classes, kept his head down, and avoided eye contact. By lunchtime, his nerves had calmed somewhat. Bypassing the rowdy cafeteria, he found a quiet spot under an oak tree in the courtyard. He pecked at a wilted salad, lost in thought. Maybe this crazy scheme would actually work. A whole school full of people who only saw him as Jenny, not weird Jamie who liked to play dress-up in his mom's clothes. "Hey, girlfriend, cute outfit," a voice beside him piped up. Startled, Jamie looked up to see a petite Asian girl plopping down next to him on the grass. She had a sleek black bob and an impish grin. "Mia," she said by way of introduction, sticking out a hand with neon green nails. "Jenny," Jamie replied shyly, shaking it lightly. He wasn't sure how to act around other girls. Keep it simple, he told himself. "Thanks, I like your hair. You're new, right? I've been appointed by the welcoming committee to show you around." She jumped to her feet and tugged Jamie up with a surprisingly strong grip. "Come on, if we hurry, I can give you the tour before next period." As Mia chattered enthusiastically, pointing out the different buildings and fields, Jamie felt himself relax. It was nice to make a friend, even if he was deceiving her. The guilt pinched, but he pushed it aside.
Was it so wrong to want to live as his true self? The rest of the day flew by, and as the final bell rang, Jamie gathered up his books, feeling cautiously optimistic. He had survived his first day as a girl without any major incidents. Blending into the throng of students in the hall, he made his way toward the parking lot where his father would be picking him up. As he scanned the idling cars, his stomach dropped as he spotted the familiar blue sedan. His dad was early, and he wasn't ready for this confrontation yet. He needed more time to work up the nerve to tell him. Pulse thrumming in his ears, Jamie walked slowly toward the car as if to his execution. He could see his dad frowning as he drew closer, eyebrows knitting together. Oh God, this was a mistake. What was he thinking? Coming to school like this? As he reached for the door handle, he braced himself for the outburst. But his dad just stared at him, jaw clenched and eyes inscrutable behind his glasses. "Get in!" he said curtly, and Jamie quickly scrambled into the passenger seat, staring at his sensible black flats. The air felt charged as his father put the car into drive and pulled out of the school lot. They rode in tense silence for several long minutes, his dad's knuckles white on the steering wheel. Jamie felt like he might vibrate out of his skin with anxiety. As they turned onto their street, his dad finally spoke, voice strained.
"So, are you transgender?"
He said the word carefully, as if unsure of the pronunciation. "Is that what this is?" Jamie swallowed hard, throat dry as sandpaper. He had been asked this question before by well-meaning but ignorant relatives. "No, I'm not trans. I identify as a boy. I just like to express myself
Femininely, sometimes,"
he explained quietly. His father nodded slowly as if processing this.
"And this is something you want to do all the time now? Dress like a girl?"
"At school, yeah. But I can change before coming home." Jamie rushed to reassure him.
"No,"
his dad cut him off. "You don't have to do that. I'm just trying to understand." He pulled into the driveway and cut the engine, twisting in his seat to face Jamie. "This is all very new to me. I don't really get it. But if this is who you are..." He waved a hand at Jamie's feminine presentation. "Then I'll try to support you. It'll take some getting used to, but you're my son, or daughter, or whatever you want to be called." Hearing those words, Jamie felt a rush of emotion, eyes welling up. "I'm still figuring it out, but I'm the same person, Dad, just exploring another side of me." His father reached over and squeezed his shoulder. "I know, kiddo, it's just hard for an old guy like me to wrap my head around, you know? Boys in skirts and makeup." "It's not that weird," Jamie protested weakly. "Lots of people express gender differently these days." I know. Like that Rue Peter drag show your sister's always watching." His dad shook his head with a wry smile.
"RuPaul's Drag Race,"
Jamie corrected automatically. He had secretly binged many episodes himself, marveling at the queen's glamorous transformations and unabashed confidence. And drag is performance. This is just me.
"Right. Well, you do make a very pretty girl,"
his dad offered, and Jamie ducked his head, cheeks warming at the compliment.
"I'm sorry if I didn't react well at first. You caught me off guard is all."
"It's okay, Dad. I'm still getting used to it, too." They sat in silence for a moment, the air between them feeling less strained. Then his father cleared his throat. "So, do you have a different name you want to be called, or... At school I'm going by Jenny, but you and Mom can still call me Jamie." He fidgeted with the hem of his skirt. "And I'm using he pronouns for now, but I might want to experiment with she sometimes." His dad nodded. "Okay, Jenny." He said the name carefully, as if testing how it felt on his tongue. "Just please promise you'll tell your mother and I if you're struggling with anything, all right? I know being a teenager is hard enough without dealing with all this, too." He waved a hand vaguely. "I will," Jamie said, feeling a rush of gratitude. Coming out was terrifying, but his dad was trying to understand. It was more than he had dared to hope. Thanks, Dad. I love you, son, no matter what. His father reached over and drew him into an awkward side hug over the center console. Jamie let himself relax into the rare embrace, resting his head on his dad's broad shoulder. For a moment, he felt like a little kid again, safe in his father's arms. As they separated, his dad gave his hair a light tug.
Guess I'll have to get used to this longer style, huh?
Jamie laughed, running a hand through his chestnut waves. I'm still figuring out what to do with it. Mia wants to try braiding it.
Who's Mia?
His dad asked, unbuckling his seatbelt.
Oh, a girl I met today. She's really nice. Showed me around the school. That's great that you made a friend already.
His dad smiled as they got out of the car and headed into the house.
I'm sure it's not easy being the new kid.
Yeah, Jamie agreed, kicking off his shoes in the entryway.
But I think things are going to be okay.
For the first time in a long time, he actually believed those words. Walking into the kitchen, he saw his mom bent over the stove, hair tied back in a messy bun. She straightened up at their entrance, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Hi, honey. How was your first day at the new school? Her voice trailed off as she caught sight of Jamie, and her eyes widened almost comically. Jamie froze, smile slipping from his face. He hadn't even considered that his mother would be home. Normally, she worked late on Mondays. Mom, I can explain. He started weakly, but his mother was already crossing the kitchen towards him. Her eyes moved over him, from his long hair to his made-up face, down to the skirt and girlish sneakers. He braced himself for her reaction, stomach twisting.
My God,
she breathed, stopping a few feet in front of him. Jamie's heart hammered against his ribs as he waited for the hammer to fall, but then his mother's face broke into a tremulous smile even as her eyes shimmered with tears. Don't you look beautiful? She said softly, reaching out to cup his cheek. Jamie stared at her in shock. Whatever response he had been expecting, it wasn't this.
You're not mad?
He checked, voice wobbling. Oh, sweetheart, no. His mom pulled him into a fierce hug, enveloping him in the familiar scent of her perfume. I'm just surprised. My baby boy is growing into such a lovely young lady. Jamie felt tears threatening again as he clung to her.
I'm still your baby boy.
He mumbled into her shoulder.
Just a boy who likes to look like a girl sometimes.
His mom squeezed him tighter. Over her head, he saw his dad hovering nearby, eyes suspiciously misty. His family wasn't overly demonstrative with affection normally. Jamie couldn't remember the last time both his parents had hugged him on the same day. Pulling back, his mom held him at arm's length, hands on his shoulders, as she studied him. I have so many questions, she said, half laughing, half crying. But first, are you okay? Do you feel safe and supported at school? Because if anyone gives you trouble... The fiercely protective tone made Jamie smile. His mom was barely 5 and 3, but he had no doubt she would storm the principal's office if needed. I'm okay, Mom. I mean, it was scary, but I think most people just thought I was a new girl student. She nodded, visibly relaxing. Good, and you know Dad and I are always here if you need anything. She looked to her husband, who dipped his head in agreement.
Your mother's right,
his dad said gruffly.
We've got your back, son. Or daughter. He quirked a smile. Still getting used to the terminology. Me too, Jamie admitted. But I do know I'd prefer if you still call me Jamie at home and use he, him pronouns for now. Of course, honey. Whatever you need. His mom rubbed his arm soothingly. Well, I don't know about you two, but I'm starved, his dad announced,
clapping his hands together. "What's for dinner?"
Oh, shoot! The stir-fry! His mom dashed back to the stove where a pan was smoking ominously, and just like that, the momentous occasion of coming out to his parents reverted back to a typical weekday evening. As he helped set the table and listened to his dad complain about a difficult client at work, a knot that had been lodged in Jamie's chest for months slowly began to unravel. He knew there would be bumps ahead as he navigated his gender expression, and he hadn't even told his parents about the new name at school yet. But their easy acceptance tonight felt like an important first step. Maybe, just maybe, he could do this. Be himself, whoever that turned out to be. The next morning, Jamie once again stood in front of the mirror, putting the finishing touches on his look. Today, he had chosen a floral baby doll dress with a lace collar that fluttered against his collarbones. White tights and pink ballet flats completed the soft, feminine aesthetic. He had taken extra time with his makeup after watching some tutorials online, managing a subtle, smoky eye and careful contouring. Long lashes framed his green eyes, and his lips shone with rose gloss. Turning his head side to side, he admired his handiwork with satisfaction. "Jamie, you're going to be late!" His mom called up the stairs. With a final fluff of his hair, he grabbed his backpack and hurried down to the kitchen. His parents were already at the table, his dad hidden behind the morning newspaper. His mom set a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of him with a smile. "Thanks," he said, sliding into his seat. It felt surreal to be eating breakfast in an outfit more suited for Easter Sunday than a typical school day. But a giddy thrill went through him at the utter normalcy of it, like this was no different than any other morning. Draining his orange juice, he shouldered his bag and bent to kiss his mom's cheek. "Bye, love you." "Love you too," she said, catching his hand and giving it a squeeze. "Have a good day. Remember, Dad is picking you up again." I know. He rolled his eyes good-naturedly. His parents still didn't trust him to walk home alone in the new neighborhood. His dad lowered the paper to peer at him over his glasses. "Be careful crossing that busy street in front of the school. Look both ways." "I'm not 5, Dad," Jamie huffed, but he was secretly pleased by his father's gruff concern. Waving, he hurried out the door into the bright morning. He had barely made it down the block when he heard quick footsteps behind him. Tensing, he turned to see Mia jogging to catch up, her raven hair bouncing. "Hey, Jenny!" she greeted breathlessly, falling into step beside him. "Oh, super cute dress!" "Thanks," Jamie said, tugging at the lacy hem self-consciously. He still wasn't used to receiving fashion compliments. "I like your overalls." "Thrifted them for a steal," Mia said proudly, plucking at one of the straps. The denim was festooned with colorful enamel pins. "So, how was the rest of your first day? Meet any cute boys?" She waggled her eyebrows. "Oh, not really," Jamie hedged. Getting hit on by Chad had been more stressful than exciting. "I'm not looking to date right now," Mia pouted. "Ah, you're no fun!" Then she gasped, eyes lighting up. "Ooh, you know who would be perfect for you, though? Robbie, Lennox." "Who?" Jamie asked, already dreading the answer. "This super sweet guy in my chem class, artistic sensitive type. Always scribbling in his notebook. He would totally appreciate a pretty bookish girl like you." Privately, Jamie thought he could appreciate those qualities quite well on his own, but he just smiled politely. This was the problem with buddying up to Mia. She seemed determined to pair him off in the first week. Thankfully, he was saved from more matchmaking schemes by their arrival at school. As they merged into the throng of students streaming through the doors, Jamie felt Mia link her arm through his. "Ready to dominate day 2?" she asked with a grin. Jamie took a fortifying breath and smiled back. "As I'll ever be." The morning passed in the usual blur of roll call and syllabi. Jamie took dutiful notes, trying to ignore the prickly feeling of eyes on him. Not all the looks seemed admiring either. He caught a few girls whispering behind their hands. Self-consciousness crept in as he wondered if they had figured out his secret. He resisted the urge to make sure his wig was straight.
Get a grip,
He told himself sternly. Girls always compare themselves to other girls. It's not necessarily about you. By lunchtime, he was in desperate need of a friendly face. He scanned the cafeteria until he spotted Mia's sleek bob bent over her tray. Exhaling in relief, he started to make his way over, only to stop short when he saw she wasn't alone. Beside her sat a lanky boy with rumpled black hair and a gray hoodie, long, nimble fingers coated in paint splatters. He was watching Mia with an amused tilt to his full mouth as she gesticulated wildly, pink-tipped braids swinging. Robbie Lennox, Jamie surmised with a sigh. Clearly Mia worked fast. He briefly debated just hiding out in the library, but his stomach was growling and Mia had already spotted him, waving him over enthusiastically. Resigned, he wove between the tables to join them. As he set down his tray, Robbie looked up and Jamie almost tripped over the bench. Oh, wow! Up close, the boy was even cuter, with messy dark waves and warm brown eyes behind black-framed glasses. A smattering of freckles dusted his nose and defined cheekbones. You must be Jenny, he said, with a crooked smile, sticking out a hand for Jamie to shake.
I'm Robbie.
Hi, Jamie squeaked, internally wincing at how breathless he sounded. He gingerly shook Robbie's paint-stained hand, trying to ignore the dart of electricity that shot up his arm at the contact.
So, Jenny, Robbie was just telling me about this amazing project he's working on for the fall art show, Mia said, eyes twinkling with mischief. I bet he'd love to get your opinion as a fellow creative type. Oh, are you an artist too? Robbie asked, tilting his head inquisitively.
No, I just like clothes, Jamie stuttered, kicking Mia under the table as she snickered. I mean, I'm into fashion, style, and stuff. He wanted to melt through the floor at how air-headed that sounded, but Robbie just smiled.
Fashion is art you can wear,
he said, with an easy shrug. I can barely match my own socks. I think it's awesome you have such a strong sense of personal style. Jamie tried to will down the blush he could feel spreading across his cheeks.
Thanks,
he mumbled, picking at his salad to avoid Robbie's intense gaze. The other boy seemed content to simply look at him for a long moment before turning back to his sketchbook.
I'm working on a series of surrealist portraits,
he said, angling the pad so Jamie could see. Playing around with distorted features and unconventional color palettes. I'm hoping to convey a sense of the complexity of identity, you know? Whoa, Jamie breathed, taking in the melting faces and kaleidoscopic eyes splashed across the page. That's incredible! You're so talented! Robbie ducked his head, dark hair falling into his eyes. Thanks, he said, sounding almost shy. It's a little weird, so I wasn't sure if people would get it. No, I love it, Jamie assured him. Art should make you feel something, make you question reality a bit. I think you captured that perfectly. Robbie peeked up at him through his lashes, small smile playing at his mouth. You seem to really understand what I'm going for. That's rare. Mia, who had been watching the exchange like a tennis match, chose that moment to chime in gleefully. See? I knew you two would totally vibe. Artistic types always find each other. Jamie wanted to kick her again for her inability to read a room, but Robbie just laughed. Guess Mia knows how to pick her friends, he said, knocking his shoulder companionably against hers. Just friends, Jamie told himself firmly, even as a tiny flutter of disappointment unfurled in his stomach. which was crazy because this crush was even more ill-advised than his current gender-bending experiment. But as the conversation shifted and he sank into the easy back and forth with Robbie and Mia, he couldn't fully squash the small spark of hope kindling in his chest. When the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, Jamie felt a strange mix of relief and regret. He needed to get a grip. This cute, sensitive artist boy was so far out of his league, it was embarrassing. Still, as they gathered their trays and prepared to head to class, Robbie turned to him with a soft smile.
This was fun,
he said, adjusting the strap of his messenger bag.
We should hang out again sometime.
Definitely, Mia agreed, before Jamie could respond. Maybe we could study for the chem test together. Oh, I'm not in your chem class, Jamie pointed out, privately dubious about how much studying would actually occur. You could still join, Robbie offered casually. I mean, if you wanted to, sure, that'd be great. Jamie heard himself agreeing before his better judgment could intervene. Mia looked delighted. Awesome! We can set it up later. Robbie graced him with another crooked grin as the warning bell rang. See you around, Jenny. Yeah, see you, Jamie echoed faintly, watching him amble off to class, a lone, tall figure in the sea of students. What was he thinking? Crushing on the first cute boy to show him attention, making study dates under false pretenses. This was so far beyond the scope of what he had intended with this whole female persona thing. But as he absently drifted to his own class, he couldn't seem to tamp down the butterflies taking flight in his stomach. It was just an innocent study session, he reasoned. Nothing to get worked up about. As Jamie walked to his next class, he couldn't stop thinking about Robbie. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the passion in his voice, when he talked about his art. It was intoxicating. And terrifying. What was he doing, agreeing to study with him? It wasn't like he could actually date Robbie, not without revealing his secret and probably destroying their tentative friendship in the process. Sighing, he slid into his seat in English, barely registering the teacher's droning voice as he took roll. He needed to focus on school, not silly daydreams about unavailable boys. Except concentrating on anything besides Robbie's crooked grin proved nearly impossible. Jamie spent the rest of the afternoon in a daze, pen poised over notebook pages that remained stubbornly blank. By the time the final bell rang, he realized he couldn't recall a single thing that had been covered in his last 2 classes. Great! Not only was his crush threatening to blow his cover, it was also going to tank his GPA if he didn't snap out of it. Shaking his head as if to dislodge the intrusive thoughts, he gathered his books and headed for the doors, only to nearly crash right into the object of his preoccupation on the front steps. Oof! Sorry! Jamie gasped, wobbling on his heels as strong hands grasped his shoulders to steady him. We have to stop meeting like this, Robbie teased, eyes twinkling behind his glasses. He released Jamie, shoving his hands in his pockets.
You doing okay? Seem a bit spacey.
Fine, Jamie said brightly, adjusting his grip on his book bag.
Just tired. First week, you know.
Robbie nodded, rocking back on his heels.
It's a lot, transferring to a new school. I remember how overwhelming it was when I moved here sophomore year.
You transferred too? This was news to Jamie. Robbie seemed so at ease, so enmeshed in the fabric of Greenwood High. He tried to picture him as the awkward new kid, and failed.
Yeah, from Chicago,
Robbie said, jumping down the last 2 steps to the sidewalk. He glanced back at Jamie expectantly until he followed.
My dad's job relocated us. It sucked at first, leaving all my friends behind, but I got lucky meeting Mia right away. She kind of collected me.
He said it with fond exasperation.
Jamie could relate. She does seem to enjoy matchmaking.
he noted wryly.
Robbie laughed. Oh man, you noticed that too? I swear, that girl won't rest until everyone in our grade is paired off. He shook his head. Guess we got sucked into her schemes, but I can think of worse fates than studying with a pretty girl. He bumped Jamie's shoulder playfully, apparently oblivious to the heat flooding Jamie's face. Pretty? Robbie thought he was pretty.
Or Jenny. Anyway. Before he could respond, a car horn honked, making them both jump. Jamie looked over to see his dad's sensible sedan idling by the curb. Shoot, he'd almost forgotten he was getting picked up.
That's my ride,
he said apologetically, hiking his bag higher. Robbie followed his gaze, something like disappointment flickering across his face before it smoothed into an easy smile.
No worries. See you tomorrow?
Yeah, see ya, Jamie agreed, stomach flipping as Robbie flashed him one last grin before melting into the dispersing crowd. Feeling dazed, he climbed into the passenger seat, barely registering his dad's greetings. Luckily, his father seemed content with his monosyllabic responses, letting comfortable silence settle over the car. Jamie stared out the window, unseeing, Robbie's parting words looping in his head. Pretty girl. But that's all Jamie would ever be to him, he reminded himself brutally. A girl. Not a boy playing dress-up. He had to keep boundaries, no matter how much his weak heart wanted to pretend this could be something real. Robbie was funny and sweet and ridiculously cute, but he wasn't Jamie's to want. To do so would be the height of deception. No, better to keep things friendly but distant. Cordial but not overly familiar. He could admire Robbie's art and easy charm without getting his feelings involved. Even as he made the resolution, a small, treacherous part of him whispered that it might already be too late for that. That his stupid, stubborn heart had started to want the moment a handsome boy with paint-stained fingers shook his hand and smiled. By the time the car rolled to a stop in their driveway, Jamie felt like his head might explode from all the swirling thoughts and emotions. He trailed after his dad into the dim calm of the house, craving the sanctuary of his room, only to be thwarted by his mom popping out of the kitchen, bright-eyed and beaming. "How was school, sweetie? I thought we could go shopping this weekend. Get you some more outfits." She faltered at Jamie's lackluster response, brow furrowing. "Everything okay? Did something happen?" "I'm fine. Just tired," Jamie said hastily, pasting on a wan smile. The last thing he wanted was to discuss his boy troubles with his mother. "I have a lot of homework. Better get started on it." "Oh, of course," his mom said, relief bleeding into understanding. "Sophomore year is a big step up. Don't work too hard, though, okay? Make sure you get a good night's sleep." Jamie murmured something vaguely affirming, already heading for the stairs. Once in his room, he shut the door and leaned against it, feeling the air whoosh out of him in a heavy exhale. What a day. What a week. He shrugged off his backpack and towed off his flats, suddenly exhausted down to his bones. Without bothering to change or take off his makeup, he crawled into bed, cocooning himself in his fluffy lavender comforter. He squeezed his eyes shut, but Robbie's face danced on the backs of his eyelids, taunting him. Groaning, he rolled over and grabbed his phone off the nightstand. Maybe scrolling social media would numb his brain for a bit. Except the first thing he saw when he opened Instagram was a notification that Mia_Darling had tagged him in a post. Heart-sinking, he tapped over to her profile. There, in full color, was a slightly blurry candid of him and Robbie at lunch, heads bent together over Robbie's sketchbook. Mia had applied one of those sparkly filters that made it look like they were haloed in glittering stardust. The caption read, "Look at these two cuties, a meeting of artistic minds." Followed by what seemed like dozens of emoji hearts and paint palettes And were those wedding bells? Jamie felt mildly queasy as he took in the already multiplying likes and comments. Most seemed to be from people he didn't know. OMG new girl is so pretty. Get it, Lennox! Ship, ship, ship! Oh god, he'd been at this school for 2 days, and he was already Instagram official with his crush. As a girl, this was spiraling so far out of his control. Shakily, he closed the app and plugged his phone back in, resolving not to look at it for the rest of the night. This would all blow over. It was just a dumb post. By tomorrow, everyone would forget about it, and he could go back to admiring Robbie from a safe distance. Curling into a ball, he hugged a pillow to his chest and tried to will himself to relax. He just had to take this one day at a time, keep up appearances at school, come home and be himself. Plenty of people lived double lives, right? Except most of them probably weren't navigating the confusing labyrinth of gender identity while falling for unattainable straight boys. Jamie sighed, burrowing deeper into his blankets as if he could hide from his problems. Why did feelings have to be so messy and complicated? Why couldn't he just like who he was supposed to like, be who he was supposed to be? But then, he supposed that had always been his problem. Jamie had never quite fit in the neat little boxes the world tried to shove him into. He had always been a square peg in a round hole, an ugly duckling in a pond full of swans. Now, though, he was starting to realize that maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Maybe he didn't have to choose between being a boy or a girl. Maybe he could just be Jamie. With that comforting if slightly daunting thought, he finally drifted off, Robbie's understanding eyes and quirked lips following him into dreams. Tomorrow was a new day. He would figure this out somehow. He had to. His heart depended on it.